No, not really that quiet, but that's okay. I really was hoping that those, all of you here will tell me what you think, because I don't want to make this more difficult for anyone. I kind of want to, again, I'm looking at it more as structure. What are the things that we think are the most important things that should be in there, and where should we have wiggle room or not even worry about it? So I think one of the things that would be helpful is, if you think about our current course structure, what are the things that you find helpful, and what are the things that you find not? Well, how about we just start with, what do you find helpful? And then what do you think your students find helpful?
I think the ability to start with the basic template and customize is great, because I can be, and I don't know that they're really pedagogically better, but I have these strong preferences and, particulars about how I want my course to look. So for example, I think on the left side menu, I've taken to have a lot of direct links from the left side menu in Blackboard, partly because we can't guide students through the course with internal links. So one substitute for that is having a left menu. So you have a pretty basic left side menu in Blackboard in the standard template, but I might actually have a link for every single week. So I've taken to chunk up courses week by week. This is what you need to be doing. You go into the weekly folder. This is what you should be reading. This is what you should be doing. This is what's due, or whatever. So, I think the basic template of the course content or the modules, things like that. But I would pare it down. So one thing I think in the pandemic that has come through is I'm really careful that, simpler is better. So for example, you have these bold headings, right? And then you'll have things under them. And I've gotten rid of a bunch of those. Like, I didn't feel like I needed a learning module heading. So I just, I go right in with the content, and then it's self-explanatory. So, but I don't know how much of those are preferences and how much of those should be generalized. But I do think as we move from Blackboard to D2L, one thing we gain is the ability to guide people with internal links through the course. Even, Canvas and D2L can do this. So you can go through a module, and then you can have the link that brings them on to the next, or you've read this chapter, now you should take the quiz, and you can link them there. And you don't really have that capability in Blackboard. So then it was really important, I think.
Hey, Liz, Liz, I don't understand what you mean. We don't have, what kind of links are you talking about?
Internal links. So if I'm so here's an example. So if I have a document that's lecture notes, like maybe it's a lecture outline or a little synopsis of chapter 3. And after that, they're going to take a quiz.
Yep.
In Canvas, I can actually have a little arrow, from AQ, if you took, there's an arrow at the bottom and said, now you can proceed to the quiz. So at the bottom of the lecture notes, I can actually have a link that takes them to the quiz in the same course. Blackboard has never had an internal linking feature, but others do, right? But other learning management systems do, including the one we're phasing too.
Gotcha.
So if you're trying to guide students through the course, I think the course shell or the basic design that I have was often a function of the limitations of Blackboard. And now that we can internally link through the course, I can see a different design. Like, you might want a template for a module or for a week that basically says, this week you read this, and then you would link, right? You would tell the designer you want to link to your chapter or your lecture notes or whatever, and the quiz or the homework or the paper prompt, the writing prompt, the discussion, whatever. Now you could have, like, I can see like a module document that just directly links them to everything they have to do. It's just,
well, you talked about, I've always been less is more, keep it simple. And, I think probably because we've had an online degree for, I don't know now, for 4 years or something. The thing I get always nervous about, even with SELT has all these, and John Kane is like the king of do this. Here's a new thing. Here's a new thing. Here's a new thing. Here's a new way to do it. And then, and there's people who are really high performers in online and try all these new things. I'm thinking, oh my God, think about I just think about my poor working mother with 3 kids who works a full-time job, and she's got 4 classes online, and everyone looks different and everybody's doing something different. It's so overwhelming for them. So I like that our instructional designers have kept a template. I keep saying it's not about us, it's about them. And I think we all agree with that here, but sometimes, like, I know one semester, even in our department, someone was using, hypothesis, and somebody was using backpack, and somebody was using, and I'm thinking, oh my God, if I'm that student, I'm just going like, what the hell? Like, I just
Well, it was worse because some people switched to Google Classroom, right? So we have people
Exactly.
that wouldn't even use Blackboard and they
Well,
were
and there's
using a Google
Damien doing
Classroom.
his own Canvas thing, you know, and I'm
Right.
just like, what about the student? So I think it's really important as we continue to move forward and as our population, I'm the sort of the champion of the non-traditional whatever person. They just need it really clear, concise, and to the point. And I have this very basic setup, and it sounds very stupid when you say it, but it's read, it's watch, and it's do.
Mhm.
And it's like, here's what it's a here's module 1, module at a glance. Then you read, here's the readings. Then you go to another folder. Here's what you watch. And here's the folder do. Here's what you do. That's for the quizzes. That's for the discussion. That's for the assignment. That's for the reflection paper. So, and I just kind of came up with that because I wanted people to navigate easily. And it turns out that they love that. They just find that really simple, very simplistic. And I'm not saying that's the only way to do it, but I know I took that flexible teaching workshop that Teresa and Greg did during the pandemic, like summer of 2020. And it's funny. I had a hard time navigating your content. Like, and you had like 1.1A, 1.1B, I'm like, oh, what do I do? Like, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I do this. And I was a little not sure where to go. So that got me back to, okay, what do we, keep very simple for them. And I know we all have our own, way of doing things, but I think we have to really think hard about the student and we do. I mean, that's why you're all here. So.
But I think you bring up some good points, Sandy, and Liz, you've brought up some really good points too, because I think we do have to be flexible in so much. I mean, and thinking of it from my perspective as an instructional designer, we do have to be flexible to your preferences as well. And in all honesty, you all know your students better than we do. So, with all of your years of teaching, what works for your students. And that's kind of why, I want to talk about it more as structure. And I hear what you're both saying. One of the things I do miss, for example, from Angel is where faculty are able to link to specific content. I think that makes it easier, particularly for the inexperienced online learner. Whereas what you say,
Right.
Sandy, is very similar. It's just your visual is different. And
Right.
I don't think
But
there's
where
a right
Sandy
or wrong.
got confused, like saying it's like 1A and 1B and I got lost. And that whole idea is with you, when you can internally link, you don't get lost.
And
because
Liz,
basically there's an arrow that takes you to the next step,
Yes.
right?
And you made me, Liz, you made me realize, I mean, I was an Angel user at Penn State. I forgot that. I forgot that those were those, I forgot that happened, existed.
And and just to reminisce on the beauty, you could actually take a question from any assessment and move it to any course and any assessment in any course. Okay, I'm sorry, that's gone. Those days are gone. I'm sorry.
That
I
sounds so
repressed it all.
wonderful.
I repressed it.
I just reminisce about, remember when I didn't have to download it as a zip and then upload it here. But I think, Sandy's, I love that, read, watch, do. But I think
I like your internal links too.
But the internal link will reduce cognitive load if we really, in the training,
Mhm.
really letting faculty know you now have the power to guide them through the course in a way that you did not have in Blackboard. And I think it's huge. I do.
All right, Casey, I did see what you put in the chat, that there's confusion between course information and content. And again, it's thinking about that too, thinking about what that might look like, how that might be done. Because one of the things we had done in the, as when we were an Angel and as we moved forward into Blackboard was to do that, the course information folder was that big explosion of the syllabus. And again, that comes out, it's not something we came up with, it's something that is in the literature, because when students go into fully online courses, they're looking for things quickly. So that's where that whole concept came from. But I hear you. I think, again, we have opportunity to be able to name things in a way that makes sense to us and for our students. So there is, I kind of was playing in Brightspace and kind of created, because there's the empty course shell in there. So I've been playing around with that. And I created just a broader folder called content. But again, what you were saying, Liz, too, with the navigation, as far as how you manage that and set things up on the navigation on the left-hand
Yeah,
navigation.
the left menu. Mhm.
Thank you. Again, I think we have similarities within Brightspace to do things like that. And I don't think there's a right or wrong. I think my question is, though, again, when you are teaching your online students, are you seeing things as far as, do they scroll? Because that's always been one of the bigger concerns. I think about it from a design perspective, and it is a web design, because that's part of what we do when we work with faculty for online, is thinking about, okay, are students going to scroll down to the bottom? Do you see those issues, or is that something we shouldn't even be concerned about?
You know, scroll within a document or scroll within like the entry page or
Anywhere. I mean, in a
anywhere.
document, I think it's in a document, I think there's some it's
Right.
more intuitive.
Right, because it just
Thinking
stops. Right.
about like a fold, the
Yeah.
concept of a folder or your menu, because
Right.
adding
I think
all of
it's
those
the
pieces.
right. I think the titles really help. So like if I have week 1, 2, 3, they're going to naturally scroll down because they're looking for week 4, 5, 6, and 7. So I do.
Okay.
And then the left menu is telling them, that stuff is there too in a more abbreviated format.
And
So
that's fine.
I think titles really tell students an important signal. The titles of your documents and folders need to be super informative. I think I have too many faculty, and I found this by accident when I was looking at some other online courses and was promptly mortified, is that they're faculty who just they don't use folders and things to organize. So they're just throwing everything there. So the lecture notes, the quizzes or homeworks or whatever, they're just kind of thrown in, and like the newest one is at the top, and you really have to scroll down and find what you're looking for. And they just threw it all in the content section, and they didn't, organize it chronologically or organize it by type. Right. I think chronologically is better because you type, these are the lecture notes, but I'm a big believer in like, this is what you're doing this week, because they don't look beyond a week. We would like them to look beyond a week. Most of them do not.
That is true. I totally agree with you on that. That's what I've seen too. And again, some of the things I think about too are my own experiences right now in a fully online program. Casey, please go ahead.
So I was going to expand a little bit on what I put in the chat and what some others have been saying. I think it comes down to being really explicit in the training. There's going to be a whole bunch of people that never used Angel. Yes. And won't understand this internal linking, but can benefit from it immensely. So we need to make that communicated. I think the course information, the content that I highlighted might be more an issue with the courses where Blackboard is just supporting the class. It's not a fully online course.
Web enhanced.
Right. And I honestly, it's only been in the last 18 months or so that I recognize there's potential confusion there. And I've been now intentionally removing the course information menu item because I don't use it. Right. Everything's in my content. But I think if faculty don't understand that some students are going to look for things there if it's viewable. And then they don't see anything there and they just think, okay, there's no information for the course. And they don't go to the content. So some of that is the faculty training the students in their course. But I think it's also making sure that all of the faculty understand there are some subtleties or there are some differences that can be applied, and they need to settle on one and be consistent.
I think you make a valid point there, Casey, because some of the things that as we're talking about this at this, with system and thinking about that, there are differences in modalities. And I think that's the biggest piece we need to kind of highlight too. What's the modality you're teaching in? If you're teaching face-to-face and you're using the DLE to support what you're doing in the classroom, I totally agree. Your setup would be different, though you may have some of those pieces in there. Whereas, for example, the course information folder, we can certainly call it something else. It doesn't have to be called course information folder. We can call content something else. We can encourage faculty to customize that to some degree, but having certain things that we think are hallmark of SUNY Oswego courses, particularly our online courses. I think those are the things that feedback from all of you will really help us help you. Yeah, we can do something like that too, Liz. There is some things, that's one of the things I will say about, and again, I don't believe any of you have taught in SUNY Online with Ultra. But that is one of the things they do, is they have a thing called Start Here. And I can see how that could be beneficial. I'm trying to see what you said. You sent, Michael. Oh, your left margin. Okay. Your left navigation menu. Yeah. I don't necessarily think there's a right or wrong. I think we do for, oh, I got it up here. I'm not even paying attention. Yeah, that's some different ways to do it too. And we could call, for example, the course information folder course syllabus, and still explode out pieces of it, and then call the other one, content, which, and again, be more explicit as far as, weekly readings, lectures, videos. If you're going to call out your assignments, again, instructional design encourages that things are encapsulated in individual modules. It makes it easier for students, but there's no right or wrong. And the discussions, I think I know as an online student, I prefer to find all of my stuff in one module, but that's my preference. But those are things too we're finding in the literature that do support that kind of thinking, as far as encapsulating those pieces into a single module. But then again, we've worked with faculty who have had broad topics and submodules. Again, that gets into a little crazier, and that gets into number of clicks and stuff for our students going to go down and click into that. So it's part of it's thinking about what makes sense, what is the literature telling us, and then what do we do going forward. So if you want, I'll share my
I appreciate the in real time analysis. Thanks, Teresa, for sure.
Oh, no, you're welcome, Michael. And again, it's like I said, there's no right or wrong. It's just, but again, you're being consistent. Mm-hmm. And that, again, I know, Mary, you've worked with us, Liz, you work with us all the time, Michael, and Star. I mean, the biggest thing we've always said is be consistent. Be consistent. And you can always talk, hang one sec, Sandy. You can always talk about that in your course welcome or intro, giving them a brief idea. Here's how I've organized the course, because then they know what to expect. Go ahead, Sandy.
Well, just you'd started off this discussion as like, what are the strengths, or what do you guys do well? And I do like the course information. And the only thing is, I started teaching online, I don't know, like the second semester I got here or something. And so there was a template or, information given to me in that course information. But over the years, I realized as I looked at some of my colleagues, they had different information. So one of the things I was always looking for is, I liked that. I liked that you had all the technology support stuff. I liked that you had all these, all this, sort of generic stuff about whatever it's Title IX or FERPA or all that stuff. But things changed, and links changed, and links were dead. And even for a while, like I always do the academic integrity quiz, and for a while something didn't work on that. And so one of the things I think is, if we are having some template driven content for course information, which is the generic stuff that we all should have, it would be great if every semester somebody makes sure, I don't know, that we get a refresh, or it's updated, or nothing changes. Because it took me a couple of years to realize, wait, I don't have that. And I would talk to Jessica Harris. She's like, well, new faculty orientation, they covered that. Oh, okay. Well, I'm old faculty, so I don't get the new faculty update. So just some of those little things to be aware of. It's minor, but.
No, it's not minor. And those are things actually we as the instructional design team have talked about. How do we do that?
Yeah.
We weren't able to do those kinds of updates, those broad updates in Blackboard. that's something we can definitely see if there's an
Kind of the
option.
like the canned stuff, if it could be, updated with
Well, and that
links
was
and-
why for a long time too, and those of you who, again, the last couple of years, because so much has happened and stuff, a lot of things have fallen by the wayside, so to speak. But Greg and I used to send out reminders to all of our online faculty, hey, your courses start and here are some things to look at. And those could be, if that's the way we need to do it, we can do that, because it's pretty easy for me to pull an Argos report, for example. I'm going to stop this for a minute because we aren't there yet. It's easy enough for me to pull an Argos report, see who's teaching online, for example, and then set a targeted message using YAM to all of the faculty who are teaching online saying, hey, remember we're opening this day. Here's some things you should know. Here's some things, remember to do. Here's some new things you should be aware of. And, I can't say that this would happen right away because, the migration is going to be our biggest priority. But I think that goes back to some of the things we used to do. And how do we keep our faculty informed of these changes that are necessary as we think about it? All right, I'm going to bring this back up. Again, this is, please, no way authoritative. This was kind of my first stab at playing with Brightspace, because you do see the empty course shell, correct? Okay, so what I did was I set up our current. I'm still figuring this out, so here we go. This isn't really what I want. This is what I want here, the table of contents. So I wanted, our current one has all of these pieces in there. And that's, I know it's a lot of stuff. Each section is pulled out, but again, these are all the things that would be in your syllabus anyway. So, and yes, we've encouraged faculty to use an accessible syllabus so students can print it. And by the way, for what it's worth, it looks like printing may not be such a bear out of this for students. I don't know, I haven't tried it yet.
I think given the fact that students often don't read a whole big document, I really like this course information format. I find it that, then the students can do a targeted look if they're looking for something. Also, I like it because if they ask me a question, I say, look in and I give them the name of whatever the thing is, as opposed to just look, the generic look at your syllabus.
Look at the syllabus, right?
Yeah, because then they're like,
agree.
oh my God.
But I do think it's important to have a PDF syllabus. Your department secretary has to have them on file. So I do both. I do a redundant. I make a PDF that combines it all to one document.
Right.
But I agree with Mary that I think the sections can make it more doable. I sometimes combine them for fewer. So I'll have a course overview and objectives as one document,
Right.
or the all the reporting mandated language I kind of put into one spot.
Right.
So there's fewer sub documents, but
Yeah.
So what I did do is I kind of went that way, Liz.
mhm.
I did the welcome. So when I was thinking of the welcome, the section would include and again, it's an idea. Your instructor bio, your instructor contact information, and your principal accessible syllabus. Course overview would include the course overview, which would be taken from the college catalog, your course objectives, and your course activities, because it's a narrative. Course materials, that's where I'm thinking that would include your book information, reader information, necessary applications, and technology. Expectations, again, those are something we've been encouraging faculty to do, saying, here's what you can expect from me, here's what I expect from you, and just outlining those things as far as the expectations that students should have for you is for you to be, for example, when would they get feedback on discussions? When would they get feedback on short writing assignments? When would they get feedback on longer projects? So that's some of the stuff you can put in there, but the same token, what I expect from you, is, to be polite, if you're going to have discussions, that's fine, but, don't be rude, don't be whatever. The grading and rubrics, I combined that because those were separate sections. So it's, the grading, how you be evaluated. Again, I was just trying to, what is it we call it now? We can always call it something else. The assignment and discussion rubrics, grading policies. College policies, procedures, resources. So this goes back to the intellectual integrity policy, the Clery Act, and the other resources pertaining to accessibility and technical support. And we can always add more there too. Yeah, and then the course schedule. And I know it shows up initially, but finding the way so that they can do a fully, printable, accessible course schedule, depending, because again, I'm going to go back to our adults, many of our adult students, to be able to print out just the course schedule can be your Bible to being successful for the semester, especially if you're taking more than one course. So, I mean, again, it's still all the same stuff. It's just a little bit more condensed, and it was just an idea. But I think it's important that we can call it different stuff. We don't have to use the same terminology we've been using.
Teresa, I think this is, I like this. I like how you do your course information. I would not change. I mean, you got a lot of people. I mean, you're talking to sort of the choir here of people who do stuff online, but there's a lot of people. I think of Ann Fairbrother, who, went remote, and that was a big step for her, and she's doing it. But I'm thinking, oh my God, don't change. The hardest thing for us older folks is when the visuals change. Okay, so that's all going to change in Brightspace. So don't change the language yet. We're creatures of habit.
And again, that's why.
And maybe we do in a year, but I wouldn't do it right from the start, because it's like, wait, I used to call it this. What is it now? I don't know.
Yeah, and to go back to Casey's point, when Casey talked about the difference between course information and content, I find in my face-to-face classes, I sometimes throw things into course information, and sometimes I throw it into content, and then a student will ask me where something is, and I send them an email. I say, look in course information, and they email me back and go, there's nothing in there. And I'm like, oh shit, this semester I put it in content. So I'm like, go to content, it's in there. So I'm as much, my online, it's all set because I've got my system and I stick to it. But in my face-to-face is where I get messed up with that. So Casey, that was a great point, because I'm like, oh, I thought I was the only one who confused those two terms.
But again, you're reiterating what Casey said too, in the sense that we do need to think about it with the differences in modality. What you're doing in your face-to-face course when you're using the DLE is going to be different than when an instructor is doing a fully online course. And so, I mean, to me, and again, you tell me if I'm wrong here, but that could be an opportunity for us to create a suggested structure for, say, if you're going to use your course to support your face-to-face, here are some ideas and suggestions. If you're going to create a hybrid course, with reduced seat time, here is how you might do that. I mean, again, I don't want to make this difficult, and I don't want to confuse, okay? If you're creating a synchronous online, which isn't the right term, but it's a fully online course, but it has synchronous components where students are required to use, meet with their class in, using video conferencing. This may be a good idea. And then with your fully online courses, and I know that's kind of what SUNY is looking to do. And but I think it's important to involve all of you in those discussions, because you're the ones who use this tool. And even though my team and I understand how it works and the technology and all of that piece, the one piece we aren't doing is we aren't in front of the students the way you all are. And that's why I really want your input into this. So it makes sense to all of you, and it's easier to use, and it helps you and your students. So I'm going to go ahead and just stop the sharing, because again, this was just an idea. Yeah, okay, you're right. You're right, Casey. Exactly. And that's what we were kind of saying. I think that's where we might want to consider a couple different structures depending on modality.
I don't think it may, and maybe I don't even know if it's possible to have different templates. I think you're going to have a template that everybody's going to see, but I don't know that I ever even heard that the template that's there in Blackboard is specifically for an online only course.
Not necessarily, no, when we would create a shell, it is not. What happens, Carrie, you're gonna have to help me with this if you remember. Usually, it's been a while.
What, the Blackboard?
When we create, because a lot of times when we, for example, when we create a development shell or a sandbox shell in Blackboard, sometimes we do nothing. And that is like the default. And sometimes we add the online template. So there are some differences.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. So if it's going to be an online course, they're going to get an online template. And what everybody else gets is going to be, does not have all of the same features inside of it.
And it
I'd have
could
to see
be-
what a blank course looks like.
Right. It could be that it's a single course structure, and it could be something that maybe, again, thinking as we are thinking about it from the student's perspective, read me first or start here, and we're able to at least say, here are some things to consider, depending on your modality. And it could be just a series of checklists, so to speak. And they could edit. Again, there's pieces of this we still don't know, because Carrie, Doug, and I, as well as Kathy Dutton and the rest of the support team, we've not seen the administrative console yet. And we probably won't see it until, I think, end of February, I think. So there's still a lot of pieces we don't know, but I think it's important that you all are pointing these pieces out so we can think about it as we move forward. So I think, I don't know, what do you think about something like that, Casey, where there's like a read me first for faculty as they're looking at how using Brightspace?
I think it's reasonable. I'll be honest. There'll probably be a lot of faculty that won't look at
Won't read
it.
it. I realize that
I
too.
guess. But what I'm hearing from you is that if a shell is going to be fully online, right from the get-go, it looks different from a shell that's generated automatically from a banner listing for every course.
Yeah,
I think mine were the same.
I've never had the difference.
I mean, I changed them. I do organize them differently,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
easy enough to delete the things I don't want, and then just rename categories in ways that I think better match what I do in class or things like that.
I've never seen both.
Yeah, I guess I've never seen.
I didn't know there was any difference.
I don't
Well,
know
guess
that there is.
Maybe it's the it's the content that goes inside of the folders. Maybe it's just blank. Trying to think of a course that would be empty right now.
So
I
I
haven't
guess
thought-
I'm thinking about that left side menu, because there's several things in that left side menu that are really good or crucial for an online only class.
Mhm.
But if the other faculty, which is by far the majority, using that same template, don't understand that they really don't need those things.
right. I think this is going to
Yeah.
be.
I
think
think
this
they don't understand, but they don't seem to be empowered to clean it up. So when I've been reviewing some courses for some junior faculty and doing course review, I just said, anything you're not using needs to either be invisible to students or just delete it, because you can always
Right.
bring it back. So just delete it so you don't have to look at it either. So just, as Sandy said, pare it down, clean it up. If you're not using it, students shouldn't see it. Right.
You just made me think. Like, I went on sabbatical fall 2020. I come back and all of a sudden there's this red shelf thing on the left side. I'm like, what the hell's red shelf? Am I supposed to be using this? What is this? And I'm clicking on it, like, it doesn't work. And I'm like, screw it. I don't know what that is. I just got rid of it, but again, there was that thing like, oh, nobody told me. Is this something I'm supposed to be doing? Did this change? What is it? Is it only for online? Is it for people with the special shelf in the library? I mean, I don't know what it is. So
It's only the
I
cool
did just-
professors get a red
Yeah.
shelf.
I am looking at an empty course, and the left toolbar is the same It's just the materials we put inside the content. Like if you
Oh,
click
okay.
on course information, it's completely empty.
Mhm.
So there's nothing.
Right.
But see, I
there to tell you
think
that
that's
it's online.
helpful though. I don't think that should be any different. I mean, if you're teaching face to face and want to use Blackboard, why not throw the course information? I mean, it's the syllabus basically. I mean,
Well, I think there should be one template, but I think, I think when you look forward to kind of training you're going to offer, have some training and have some suggested template alteration, people who use the course intensively for web enhanced face-to-face, right? Have them talk about how they organize it differently from the template. I think that's a good opportunity for training, but I do think in the keep it simple, Sandy Barganier philosophy, which I think is a good one, give everyone the same template, but people have to be empowered and to understand that, you can customize this template and customize it for language. Some people might call it homework. Some people call it applications. Some people call it problem sets, right? Or critical thinking exercises. In other words, you want to change the template and the folders, on that left menu that actually matches the names that you call things in the course. And that's going to vary by instructor too, so they can match those up as well. But yeah, I think different templates is probably going to be confusing. I think
That's
overkill.
fine.
I think
That's
having
fine.
a
Overkill.
repository where faculty would say sample templates, and like these are people that have gone, have customized quite a bit, and you can look at those and people can look among them and choose among them.
Right. So what I think I'm hearing then is, number one, that we would just create a single template, number one. Number two, providing materials, whether in the course, in and external, saying, if you're teaching in this modality, here are some things to consider when you're setting it up, and having that. Because yeah, we can certainly, like in spring, for example, or next winter, the instructional designers could do, a breakout that's more detailed. But if we have documentation in the courses as well as available externally, we could, again, utilizing all of the things you're saying to encourage faculty to customize it based on their modality and their language. Because again, that some of that in my head goes back to this concept of, instructor differences and structure versus discipline.
Right.
So I think that could be the way. Again, but keep, some of those things, they'll come out as they come out, because our primary role is to get the campus over. And then after that, we'll be working more on professional development to support our faculty in whatever modality, still focusing primarily in online, but also providing materials for faculty teaching other modalities.
Yeah, I think there's going to be mass hysteria. You need to keep it as consistent and as it is as possible, because people are going to be
Yes.
anxious.
Yes. And well, that was why too, the idea of the sandbox was to be helpful in helping people seeing what we're moving to, even though it's not exactly what we'll have, because we'll have more than what's there. That's just the base. It's just a sandbox. It's just a place to play. But yeah, exactly. I agree with you, Mary, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I just think given the COVID culture we're in, whatever you want to call it, to have one more thing to be told, oh, well, you can tweak this and you can do this and you can do that. And you're just, after a while, your head's exploding. It's like, really? How many things, do I have to change? I'm trying to, adjust to a lot of things. And I think to try to keep the anxiety level down would be helpful. I mean, we're told to do that with regard to our students all the time. I think we need to also do it with regard to faculty.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, get off my soapbox. But.
No, but see, this is the thing I think is important for us to hear, because since we're going to be doing the setup, I think it's so important to have feedback from all of you on what has worked, what hasn't been working, but also thinking about those other modalities. And yeah, so I I figure as we move forward, though, these are things we can kind of like do a layout and saying, what do you think? And these are the things that could be customized. And these are the things we would encourage to be left alone.
No, and I like the idea of having the opportunity to customize, because I like to do things the way I like to do them. But I'm just thinking, you know, in terms of laying it out there for the broader audience, I guess.
Right, and I can understand that too. Do you think then in those kinds of things, it would be helpful, as we say, we strongly encourage you to leave X this way because the literature tells us X?
I would
Do you
start with
think-
a common template, and then you
Right.
could actually have, a separate resource for people. You know, I figure you're going to have a website or something that's got
We will,
resources
we
about
will,
the transition,
absolutely.
right? So one of those documents on the website can be best practices in online learning, and you can
That's-
actually link, you know, we set the template up for this because these are the best practices, right, et cetera.
Thank you.
And then people can read that and can decide, well, I could still customize this and keep this best practice, right? I can, you know,
Yes.
the best practice is this general idea. Customization doesn't necessarily ruin that, right?
No,
And
no.
you know, I think the rationale for why you designed it the way you did. I mean, I think the template doesn't have to be the same as the one we have now, but
No.
it should bear a strong commonality, as Sandy and Mary noted. That it should be somewhat familiar to them. So there shouldn't be major changes to the template we're using. And then extra resources for customization, right?
I mean, Teresa, do you have and Carrie, I mean, how many people, I mean, Casey's like a whiz and does all these interesting interesting chemically things, you know, but he's an anomaly, right? So he's an outlier. I mean, what are most people doing? Just kind of the basics. Am I correct or no? I don't know.
If you think about a bell curve, right? And as we
Mhm.
think about, you know, I always go back to Rogers' diffusion of innovation. So thinking about innovation. Yes, I know, Casey. We know.
We've
And
heard.
we've already said things. And so has other people in SUNY. So no, this is a
Fine.
good thing. So when you're thinking about it, I mean, many of you are at the very bottom here at the start of the bell curve, where you are the movers and shakers. You're the ones who are willing to test and play. Let's look at John. Okay, you know, you're the early adopters. What we see is more, we'll see more as we go up that curve until we get to the, you know, that midline, so to speak. And then you have the laggards, as they call them. And they'll be the ones that are the most challenging for everyone. So
Are they teaching online 100%?
no,
Okay.
no.
Are they
But-
using the MLS? What do I mean, LMS? What is this thing called? GLD?
The digital-
T2L.
Whatever.
No. There's a
Oh.
couple different things. I'm calling so one of the things, and again, I don't know where a lot of you have come into some of our different sessions. We are calling this the DLE, or the digital learning environment, because what a DLE is basically your LMS, and then all of those other pieces that you use to provide the online learning experience to your students. Okay, so this would be stuff like not only Brightspace, but Panopto, your publisher resources, hypothesis, perusal, all of those other pieces that help make the learning experience better for our students, or we hope it's better. So that's where this whole concept of the DLE came into play.
Oh.
And as we look at it,
Yeah.
okay, as we look at it more broadly too, some of these things are looking at how, as SUNY, because again, you remember you've got all campuses over the next couple of years will be on Brightspace, and that will be the primary, that will be the DLE for SUNY. But it's also then looking at where do we find commonalities with tools. So is Panopto the best one for SUNY, or do we look at other tools like Kaltura, which is also video creation and streaming, and use that in lieu of that? Yes, student evaluations, absolutely. Student evaluations, I'm not even thinking about, because they are supposed to move to APHIS from what I understand.
Enterprise is such a terrible piece of software.
We know
It's
this.
really-
We know this. We hate it, but
it's
I didn't
terrible.
say that out loud.
Yeah, well, I
Um,
did. Repeatedly.
That's okay.
Okay.
But there's all of these different things that are going on. Yes, we have it on the recording. But again, I think we have many, 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 many people who would agree with what Liz said. I think we just, as SUNY's trying to help with a cost containment, how do we make this happen? And again, looking at, as you go listen to the power of SUNY, to be able to negotiate more favorable contracts. I think those are the different things that they're looking at too, by, maybe having a smaller tool set, but in the sense of, we don't have a couple different platforms for video. We don't have a couple different platforms for X. We don't have a couple different platforms for Y. And again, what's my understanding is that campuses will be able to use those specialized tools if need be. So again, those are some of the different things they're looking at. And so that's how this whole concept of a DLE came in. And this is the concept of the next generation digital learning environment has actually been discussed over the last 5 years. And so the NGDLE has been out there for a long time. And so the shortening of it has been around for almost as long. So anyway, just to.
It'll be interesting to see who has to conform and who doesn't. For example, ESF is already asserting that they'll use Blackboard because they have courses with SU, right? They have courses back and forth between the two campuses, and they have to use the same LMS. So they've asserted repeatedly that they'll be allowed to opt out. There are other campuses that want to, that have been told they can't. And so the whole problem is they point to ESF and say, well, if they can opt out, that we can opt out. So it's going to be interesting to how uniform this really becomes, because there's a strong push, and I don't know, I guess we're getting into politics beyond tools. I don't know if SUNY Central is strong enough to sort of push back.
Right. And I know with ESF, because of having been at SU and dealing with, as a student as well as a grad assistant, having those with them, they are so tightly
integrated. They're just really integrated with them. Yeah, they
are because, and it's, there's a lot of dependencies, because with ESF being, environmental science and forestry, they offer all of those specialized courses, but the students still need all their gen eds. So it will be interesting to see how that changes down the road. But I think they're a unique case. I think some of our university centers are in unique cases. Our hospitals are unique cases. We'll see what happens. We'll just see what happens over time. I mean, because there's a lot going on there too with SUNY Central. So all right, so I think the only other, I'm just looking at our time. All right, so it's 1:54. I don't want to take up anybody else's time, and I want to be able to stop the recording. So